Karl Rove was with in studio. He's not cold. And he's son.
I'm not in Iowa.
And your son's whiteboard, for crying out loud, too. Good morning to you, Karl. Nice to see you. Got a bunch of stuff to tick through. Call for number one. Here we go. Top three candidates now versus November. Trump's in a pretty good spot here at 69%.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty good.
Yeah. Nobody's that far ahead has ever lost a nomination. On the other hand, we're in a weird time. So we got to go to vote. Let's see what happens.
Weird meaning?
Well, just, you know, we've got an incumbent president who is in terrible shape. We have a Republican nominee, potential nominee, who is under 4 indictments and is way ahead of the rest of the pack. And then there's a big divergence between the national numbers and the numbers in the 2 earliest states where the other candidates have spent a lot of time getting themselves known. So Iowa has a history of throwing a sideball. You know, Huckabee, Santorum,
Ted Cruz?
Ted Cruz. And New Hampshire is going to be a wild card because there's no Democratic primary and independents can vote in either party's primary. And I suspect a bunch of them are going to be coming into the Republican primary.
Okay.
But you mentioned Biden's numbers, and it's one of the reasons I think that he is, you know, he's yelling back, the polls are wrong, is because look at this one from the Wall Street Journal poll. Have Biden's policies helped or hurt you? And 53% of those polled said it has hurt them. That's a number that seems very hard to turn around between now and November.
Well, and particularly if he faces former President Trump, who had almost the reverse numbers on his policies as being seen as helping him.
Right.
And this is one of the 2 grave weaknesses of President Biden, that people don't think that his policies have helped them. And so what do? They go out and call the economic policies in the country Bidenomics. It's like associate his name with things that aren't seen to be working. And the other one is that he's seen to be a weak leader. And Donald Trump is seen to be a strong leader.
Okay, I'm reading now from what our polling wrote off. When third-party candidates are included, Trump's edge over the president remains at 4 points. Biden gets 37, Trump 41. Robert F. Kennedy gets a 14. Jill Stein 3% and Cornel West 2%. Now, we don't have graphics to support this because I really don't know how it's going to shake out. Do you have a firm idea today as to how many third-party candidates could be listed on every state or any of the states that matter?
Well, it's hard to get on all 50 states. There are about 20 some odd, nearly 25 states where it's relatively easy to get on, and there are another dozen or so where with some amount of effort you can get on, and the rest of them it's very hard to get on. You need to have hundreds of thousands of signatures. No Labels party is going to be on all 50 ballots or nearly all 50 ballots. But Robert Kennedy has already decided that he's not going to be on all ballots. He's going to concentrate on the mega states and the battleground states.
And that will deny Biden.
Yeah, that will hurt Biden. And Jill Stein, think about this. Jill Stein, who's running on the Green Party label on virtually all 50 states, in 2016 in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, her number of votes was bigger than Hillary Clinton's losing margin. And similarly, in 2020, the Libertarian candidate who will be on all the states' ballots, Jo Jorgensen. Anybody know who Jo Jorgensen is?
No, I didn't, but thank you for the trivia.
Yes, she is a lecturer in psychology at Clemson. Her votes in Arizona, Georgia, and Wisconsin were bigger than Donald Trump's losing margin. Third-party candidate isn't going to win, but a third-party candidate can have a huge impact on who does.
Here's some intrigue. President Obama apparently has said he does not think that Biden can win. Here's from the Wall Street Journal. Those with concerns include former President Barack Obama, who, quote, knows this is going to be a close race and feels that Democrats very well could lose in 2024. That's according to a person familiar with his thinking. Do you think that Obama wanted the person familiar with his thinking to let that be known, to get boost the Biden campaign?
Really? Would that ever happen?
I'm just curious.
No,
that would
absolutely,
be a strategy.
Absolutely. And look, we had David Axelrod and earlier say he's deeply concerned about the age issue, and we heard a rather pungent response was attributed to the current president about that. But look, the Democrats are in trouble, and they got to, if they want to win, they better wake up to it. And starting with the president of the United States, there are only 3 people who can decide that Joe Biden is not going to be the nominee of the Democratic Party: Joe Biden, Jill Biden, and Valerie Biden Owens, his sister, who's been involved in every one of his campaigns. And why they are looking at these numbers and thinking, oh, those are the wrong polls, as the president says, and thinking they've got a great opportunity to win ahead of them.
But what's the cutoff for that decision?
Well, you know, it depends on how much trouble you want to go through. The decision now would be problematic because you'd then have people go out and get into the primaries and run. But that'd be helpful because the Democrats would get a chance to see who they are. Lots of Democrats, though, think that if something happens, it's going to happen after the primaries end in early June and before the Democratic Convention in mid-August, at which time delegates to the National Convention who are, quote, Biden delegates get to make a decision on who it is.
That would be something to cover.
Yeah.
I really love it. Thanks, Carl.
You don't have 2 hours, do you?
We'll see you for lunch. You can buy us lunch. That'd be great. Or we'll buy you lunch because it's soon to be your birthday. We know that.
Exactly.
Thanks, Carl. Good to have you.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.